Coming back here, getting into our discussions relating to all those transactions. Taxable supply is a supply on which taxes payable wherever a tax is going to be paid, GST is going to be paid. All such supply would be treated as a taxable supply. That is what is something to be noted down by us. Beyond that, I don't find anything is great over here. Moving forward, post this discussion, another type of broadly another type of supply is called as exempted supply. A exempted supply is straight opposite of taxable supply. When a goods or services is going to be exempted from levy of GST, where you are not going to pay GST, then yes, it would be treated as an exempted supply. So the whole idea is if you're going to pay tax, then it would be treated as a taxable supply. If you are not going to pay tax, then yes, it would be treated as an exempted supply. But the best part comes here is when it comes to all those zero rated supply, we had something called as zero rated supply. Now, what do we mean by zero rated? Look at the word. It is not rate, RATE, it is rated. It is a zero rated supply. What do we mean by zero rated supply? As far as zero rated supply is concerned, all those export of goods to foreign country, export of services to foreign country, and SEZs are treated as zero rated supply. Similarly, on the other hand, this side, exempted supply definitions very cleverly comes out and define exempted supply includes, let me repeat, exempted supply includes non-taxable supply. Non-taxable supply. There should be a supply of goods or services, and that supply is not leviable to GST. Currently, on that goods, on that services, you cannot levy GST. Then it is treated as non-taxable supply. A classic example to all of us at this moment can be only either petroleum product or liquor, no doubt. Both are nothing but non-taxable. So whenever we refer exempted supply, non-taxable supply is automatic. Whenever we refer taxable supply, zero rated supply is automatic. Oh, I want all of us to understand in this way. That's all. Beyond that, nothing. Wherever you refer, in anywhere in the section, anywhere you're going to refer something as taxable supply, in all that locations, automatically your what is it? Automatically your zero rated supply would come into play. Wherever you refer exempted supply, automatically non-taxable supply would come into place. So that's the broader sketch for our discussion. Or you can call these are all different maybe types of supply. Actually, you don't have a topic like this, but we introduce you this topic. This learning is because you can have at one go all these discussed, and having learnt all this, and when we get into certain discussions, when we get into certain understanding, it gives a better prospects. Coming back here, because somebody is trying to log in again and again. My login is getting out. I am not sure. Just want to reconfirm. Am I on the right batch? Am I on the right login? Am I among the right crowd? Okay. In any case, that's okay. Some other faculties having a challenge in logging in, it seems. Okay. Coming back here, as part of our discussions associated with it, these different types of supply may be broadly categorized like this only, where taxable supply includes zero rated supply, exempted supply will include non-taxable supply. Let's now get into a very important word called as aggregate turnover. The best part of aggregate turnover is aggregate turnover in-houses all these types of supply. All these types of supply are forming part and parcel of a broader term called as aggregate turnover. Let me repeat. Aggregate turnover includes all this. So, when we read through about a term called as aggregate turnover, where we're going to discuss something about, let's say, if it is going to be aggregate turnover. No doubt, aggregate turnover includes all these words. So, aggregate turnover is a broader term, and aggregate turnover includes all this. All these different types of supply are going to be out, where aggregate turnover emphasizes that as per section 2, as per 2 subsection 6, aggregate turnover would include taxable supply, exempted supply, zero rated supply, non-taxable supply, computed on a pan-India basis. Pan-India basis. Does it exclude anything? Yes, it excludes few things. On that, the first exclusion, maybe what is excluded when we learn, that would give us a better understanding. It excludes inward supply on which tax paid under RCM, which means the complete reverse charge is excluded from aggregate turnover. The complete the complete activities of RCM, wherever we are going to pay RCM, is going to be out from the term aggregate turnover, plus it excludes taxes such as central tax, which is CGST, state tax, which is SGST, union territory tax, which is UTGST, and integrated tax, which is IGST. All duties and taxes, more specifically these taxes, are not treated as a value. So if someone is going to say, I have a value so much, then yes, it would not be treated as value. This is a complete discussion on a very small term called as aggregate turnover, which has a wide implication. Maybe, as I earlier mentioned, when we go back to registration, we will refer back this word only. When we go back to composition levy, we will refer back to this word only. So many places, you can't even say this is the only place we will refer the term aggregate turnover. In many places, actually, we are referring the term aggregate. Come back here. We will get into a more specific, elaborated discussion on this term, plus business and few other terms before we move forward. Coming back here, aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover will include all supply, the aggregate value of all taxable supply, excluding RCM, including exempted supply, export of goods or services, which is zero rated supply. The supplies of person having the same PAN number, computed on a all India basis. It excludes all those taxes and duties paid under GST, including your GST compensations. Let me repeat, it should strike exactly at the right moment to all of us. Then only we can make a clear discussion. Maybe I would share with you certain numbers. A Limited had office in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. They share with you certain information where A Limited, Tamil Nadu, HO, has supplied goods which is taxable supply for rupees 30 lakhs, then exempted supply for rupees 25 lakhs, and they have made a export of goods for rupees 10 lakhs. Under RCM, which is basically their inward supply, they paid a tax on value rupees 10 lakhs. Similarly, A Limited, Andhra Pradesh office, which is basically a branch office. A Limited, Andhra Pradesh office, basically a branch office, did a taxable supply of 20 lakhs, exempted supply of 45 lakhs, and export of services, so export of goods of 20 lakhs, and paid under RCM on inward supply 25 lakhs. Then the company is before you for determination of aggregate turnover. Okay. The question is on your screen. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you would be able to appreciate this factual question. But again, let me take it up. A little important question. Okay, for some of you who find this is not possible, I'm not able to access my chat box for you on your screen. Yes. What is your aggregate turnover? Quick. On the answers. A Limited has 2 offices. Quick. Ganapati Subramanian, morning you are giving so much of enthusiasm. Numbers are all in lakhs. Shweta Manivanan, check your answer. Balaji, check your answer. Deepika, check your answer. Vaishnavi, Shweta. Just check. Yes. Good. Sorry. Aishwarya, check your answer. Aditya, check your answer. So we have, no. See, when it comes to your aggregate turnover, it includes both taxable supply in mathematically, if you want to know. Aggregate turnover, this is just for your understanding only. It is taxable supply plus exempted supply plus zero rated supply. Actually, taxable supply will include zero rated supply, and exempted supply will include non-taxable supply. Okay. This minus, if it is included, it will not include, else we can stop here. It will not include tax and RCM. So we have all these individual numbers. So, and this should be computed on pan-India basis also. Okay. So you will not take up only Tamil Nadu turnover. You will not take up only Andhra Pradesh turnover. You will take up both turnover. So when you go back to that logic of determination, yes, so then our numbers would move like this. It would be your taxable supply of 30 lakhs plus exempted supply of 25 lakhs plus export zero rated supply of 10 lakhs, no non-taxable supply, so it would stop at that level. Plus, for the purpose of Andhra Pradesh, again it is going to be a taxable supply of 20 lakhs plus an exempted supply of 45 lakhs plus export of 20 lakhs. When we sum up all these numbers, we should get a lot of you, right? Sorry, I have mistakenly highlighted your name. The people whose name all I have highlighted, all their answers are. It would be roughly about 100 and 145 lakhs. It should not be 20, 50. Can somebody cut off this addition? 150 lakhs, no? That is what I understand. Okay. Good. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, Vidya. Good, good. Now, the core question that comes up here, okay, aggregate turnover, all that is okay. Now, in the same question, my first question was little elementary to you. I'll go back to my supplementary question. The question B is little important here. Of course, no doubt, the question is going to ask you to determine aggregate turnover only. Now, in fact, for this learning only you are here before us, and only for this discussion. In this discussion, we'll make only at final level on the same definition, though the same definition is discussed at earlier level also. Now, in the above question, I go by certain assumption and presumption. In the above question, if rupees 40 lakhs worth of goods is transferred from HO to branch, which is liable to GST, what will be the aggregate turnover? In fact, you are having a beautiful question on your screen. Mark my word. In the above question, in case in the above question, if rupees 40 lakhs worth of goods is transferred from HO to branch, which is leviable to GST. What is your aggregate turnover? So this is something interesting to note here. Based on certain understanding, you might come across that aggregate turnover is different. Yes. So anybody? So Vignesh has opened the account. So Vignesh has come up with a number. Anybody? Quick, 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 quick. Yes. Aggregate turnover will be. Recollect, all of you know. Same. Vivekanandan, same. No. Ramya, Gayatri, Uma, all of you all through. Vivekanandan, kindly check somewhere in section 7, schedule 1, we read any transaction, any supply of goods by between distinct person or between related person is supply, not a supply, deemed to be a supply, none of the above. Ishwar, check your answer. Supply, not a supply, deemed to be a supply, none of the above. Any transactions between HO to branch, any supply of goods, any supply of services between HO to branch would be treated as a deemed supply. I think we should have not forgotten by this time schedule 1 para 1, sorry, so not para 1, para 2 of the end, or otherwise you call it as entry. No, Shweta, kindly check your answer. Come on. 40 lakhs is inclusive of 150 lakhs is an accounting answer, my dear friends. Kindly, dear friends, we are on question B only for that elevated understanding from Tamil Nadu perspective. From Tamil Nadu perspective, the turnover includes 40 lakhs because it is a deemed number here. Now, for the question B, your answers would be like this, where it will take you to a comfortable number of 190 lakhs. I'm not sure. I'm keeping all the other numbers remain same, but what 40 lakhs I have added here. No, sir. That is stock transfer, stock receipt contra. It will get knocked off when we make our discussions. It will get automatically closed off. No, stock transfer, stock receipt knocked off. All are for accounts. When it comes to GST, if any transaction between distinct person, it is a supply, and it is a deemed supply. Moreover, it is leviable to GST. So coming back here, number now spikes to 190 lakhs. This is what is the understanding that we are taking away. Financial profit and loss account turnover or a financial statement turnover is not aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover is an out and out number computed based on the principles relied in GST. So if in case you're going to ask me, so what is my takeaway from this discussion that we made over the last 15 minutes or so, what is that I'm going to take home related to all this? If you're going to ask me, your take home facts are something like this. Your take home facts are going to be that aggregate turnover is not equal to P&L account turnover or financial statement turnover. So whatever be it, you can think of, it is not your financial statement turnover, it is not your P&L account turnover, it is a separate number by itself, which is computed as a C specific. Very interesting to note, many times, preferably if you don't have branches, it would match with financial statements. Because basically you're not having branch. No, when you don't have branch, there is no question of distinct person. When you don't have distinct person, there is no question of other considerations coming into play. In branches, yes, we have this point to be taken. That's all. That's the takeaway for us. That sounds comfortable, and That is at which we will stop our discussions associated with aggregate turnover. I think this is one of my elaborated discussions on aggregate turnover on my all this 4-5 years of various handling of session. Um, yes, I think this is today's session on aggregate turnover seems to be very interesting. If you have any query, yes, you can always welcome to raise hand. Somebody has raised hand and then dropped it. I don't know if it is unintentionally done, then okay. Otherwise, you can always raise hands. Don't wait. If don't put all your queries in chat box, it will sometimes take you longer time to text it. It's easy. Just raise up your hand. I am always here to unmute you. Or any case, I generally unmute all of you once the session is about to get closed. At that time, I generally unmute all of you. So that's the point that I had. Nothing beyond over here. Now, a supplementary discussion we will make here. It's not the main discussion. It is a supplementary discussion. One minute. Just a minute. So, as far as the supplementary discussion is concerned, this is one definition you will use only in one place. I would not say one place, I'm sorry. You would use it, okay, two places. One on the composition levy scheme. That location you will use this definition. Now, we read about aggregate turnover. We want to know about turnover in a state or union territory. In that state or union territory, what is the turnover? I think great there. All those turnover that happen within that state, meaning thereby, sir, taxable supply of that state, exempted supply of that state, all those export supplies that are originated from that state, then it would be treated, sir. What you are trying to say, very simple. Andhra Pradesh turnover individually called as turnover in the state. Tamil Nadu turnover individually called as turnover in that state or union territory. Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu turnover of A Limited together called as aggregate turnover. That's all. So I'm sure it's understandable. Same rules, same principle, everything applies. It excludes inward supplies on which tax payable under RCM. It excludes all those taxes. So what is the difference? Andhra Pradesh turnover individually called as turnover in state of Andhra Pradesh. Tamil Nadu turnover individually called as turnover in the state of Tamil Nadu. In our example, what we discussed, I'm not going to take back any fresh examples. Of late, I'm coming up with when it comes to this virtual sessions, sticking to an example and running around the same example helps a lot. And that is my learning on this virtual understandings. Coming back here, Andhra Pradesh turnover, Tamil Nadu turnover, both turnover independently called as turnover in state of Andhra Pradesh, turnover in state of Tamil Nadu. Together jointly called as aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover is very important definition as compared to the other definitions. Quickly getting into a very, very important definition. In fact, this definition is worth so much discussion, which is going to be a definition by name called as business. Business includes section 2, subsection 17, you have to remember. 2.6 aggregate turnover, you have to remember. 2.17 business, you have to remember. 2.31 consideration, you have to remember. So I'm not sure other subsections. Of course, 252, 2.102, which is going to be talking about goods and services, requires a remembrance. Business includes, look at that wording, any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, wager, adventure, or any other similar activity. Very, very, very dangerous one. Whether or not, it is for a pecuniary benefit. See, one of the common principles that we use in defining the word business is it should land up at a profit mode. A business is always there with a profit motive. Now, if something is not for profit motive, then it is not business, then it is called as charity. Okay. I often have this thought within me for a long time, and even today I hold this thought like that only. There is a world of difference between teaching and coaching. Okay. Teaching is a noble profession, no doubt about it. Without the results, without much profits, without much anything, they teach. Coaching is something different. A mind of a business perspective comes into place. Maybe they may make huge profits. Maybe they may be doing a very, very ordinary level. But this is the difference. In fact, when we argue before the courts, we said our institution is not a coaching center because it is like this. Because many trust has coaching facilities, many charitable organization do make many trainings. Actually, we have not exposed, or actually we are not aware of many things. When we go outside in the market and we start interacting, there are many charitable organizations, you name it. There are humpty number of charitable organizations who do a various certification courses. Now, every time we used to go and argue, when we argue for clients like that, every time we would come out and say very comfortably to the court is, see, our intention is not profit motive. Coaching center means it comes with a profit motive. Now, all these discussions which we made before the court earlier are now becoming irrelevant because of usage of the word, whether or not is for a pecuniary benefit, which means you get an intended benefit, you don't get an intended benefit. For me, I don't mind if you are involved in a trade, buying and selling of goods, or any kind of commercial activity, or a person is involved in a manufacturing of goods, conversion of raw material into finished goods, or whatever be it, or he is involved in production of certain goods, followed by if a person is involved in a profession, it's a professional course, it's a professional activity, if he is involved in it, or a vocation, or an adventure. He says, I will tag a rope between two buildings and I'll walk in between, provided if you pay me $500, you are allowed to see how I walk. Or a wager, a betting contract, or a gambling contract, a wager, a contract of wager. Now, these contracts, or anybody engaged in all these activity or any other similar activity, whether it with an intention to make profit, which is pecuniary benefit, or with an not for intention to make, it would be termed as business. Similarly, any activity or transaction in connection with, or it is incidental, or it is going to be ancillary to trade, commerce, manufacture, business, profession, wager. See how widely it is worded. See, are you doing something which is in connection with trade? Are you doing an activity which is incidental to profession? Are you doing a manufacturing process which is ancillary to manufacturing? Actually, I'm not manufacturing, sir. He will send me raw material, I will paint it and I will give it back. Manufacture means, sir, there should be a conversion of raw material into finished goods. I agree. You are very right. There should be a conversion. The original product and the subsequent product should be different. I am not dealing in manufacture. I am only processing. Good. Any activity, or what do you do as an activity? Yes. Is it ancillary to manufacture? Yes. Then that activity is called as business. The third sublimb comes out and says, same any activity or transaction whether or not, sorry, whether or not there is volume, frequency, continuity, or regularity. Whether or not there is what? Volume, whether or not there is frequency, whether or not there is continuity, whether or not there is regularity, it would be termed as business. As a lot of you are experienced on various provisions in direct taxes. I know you all are good in direct taxes because you learn from that kind of faculty. Uh, I would ask you one question. See, a person bought shares before the pandemic and sold a share after the pandemic and made a gain of, let's say, 50,000 rupees. This 50,000 rupees is liable to tax, no doubt, under which head? Profit and gains from business or profession or capital gain. I'm only discussing about the source. Among these two sources, you have to see a person, a salaried individual, who who has invested on some of those shares. He saw a momentary fall. The moment he saw a fall, he went and procured it. Okay. And there was a momentary rise. He saw a rise, then he sold all. Now the question before us, in this process, he made some 30,000 rupees. Okay. No joke. What I'm sharing is a true fact. Anybody who has invested in the market on March 26th, by May 26th, the money has been increased by 30%. Flat. If it is pharma companies and all, then it is increased by 100%. All the pharma companies after July is topping up with its 52 weeks high, and you are having a complete bull run now in the market. Now, points for our discussion is it leviable to tax under profit and gains from business or profession or capital gain? That's all. CG or PBGB. So all of you are all confirming. Good. You all are agreeable to capital gain. Now I'll make a small twist here in the example. This individual, day in, day out, buy shares, sell shares. Day in, day out. Yesterday he'll buy, today he'll sell. Today he'll buy, tomorrow he'll sell. Today he'll buy, 3 weeks later he'll sell. 2 weeks later he'll sell. Buy, sell. Even that way he does. Will you still hold a view it will be leviable to tax under the source capital gain, or would you feel that it would come under profit and gains of business operation? Is it PBGP or capital gain? Good. Vidya, you still want to hold capital gain. Ramya want to hold capital gain. A few of you others are all rising up. It is a business income. Good. Now, point that I want to drive here is exactly same. Now, what changed your decision is nothing but the frequency at which you operate. Capital gains would be applicable. See, my statement is a very generic statement. Don't get carried away by my statement, but just it's I read income tax long ago. With that small knowledge on income tax, I'm sharing this. In a transactions of securities, we'll always look into what is the frequency at which he operates, what is the volume at which he operates, and we would be able to take positions based on that. Sometimes we would take a position, it is capital gain. Sometimes we would take a position, no, it does not seem to be capital gain. His intention is always buying and selling of share, engaging in a particular business activity. In fact, his salary itself is only 6 lakhs. He makes an annual income of in shares somewhere around 12 lakhs. At no stretch of imagination, it can be like that. Yes, exactly same. In case of all these transactions, whatever we are referring to, we always go by the volume, frequency, continuity. Now, why I want to highlight is government blocks it here, irrespective of your volume. irrespective of your frequency, irrespective of you continually do or regularly you do, we will still call a transaction as business. Sir, I'm not able to appreciate what you are trying to say. I'll give you a very simple example. She is a school teacher who teaches standard 8 mathematics. Apart from her schooling hours, both in the morning and in the evening, morning from 6 to 7:30, sorry, morning from 6 to 7:30, and evening during 4:30 to 7:30, she used to take tuition for various students. About 10 or 12 students, she only handpicked students and trained them on mathematics. So about 10, 12 students are learning mathematics from her on a daily basis, for which each student pay a fee of 500 rupees per month. Now the question before us is, this 6,000 rupees that she earned over a period of a month and making up a gross of 72,000 rupees, or roughly about 60,000 rupees per annum, if she is engaged in business? If she is engaged in business, a mathematics school teacher who teaches and just earn a small money, if she is engaged in business? Your answers please on the chat box. Yes or no? So Vivekanandan say it is no. Shweta says yes. Pavitra says yes. Quick, quick, quick. Pradeep, yes. Ganpati, yes. Gayatri, yes. Vivekanandan, can you come up with a reasoning why no? As majority of them told yes, as you very specifically said no. I want to know the reason. Why no? In my view, she is engaged in coaching. She is no doubt, irrespective of the volume, irrespective of the money you make, irrespective of the frequency, whether you do regularly or you do occasionally, we are not bothered. In my view, it is business and the respective individual is engaged in this business. Supply or acquisition of goods. It's going to be a procurement of goods or acquisition of goods, including capital goods. So they are also referring to capital goods in connection with either commencement of a business or closure of a business. So at the closure of business, if you sell an asset, also it is a supply. If it is treated as a business. At the commencement of business, if you procure, for that also if you buy, that is also treated as a business. So as part of a lot of us can appreciate here, as part of our IBC, there is going to be an insolvency professional, or they call them another way, otherwise, no, a resolution professional. They don't call like IP, they call it as RP. There's resolution professional steps in, and resolution professionals try to sell and recover and ensure a split and given. On all these circumstances, law simply comes out and says that yes, it would be treated as a business. All those services provided by club, association, society, or any other body, any facility, if they provide to members, it is termed as business. Look at this wording. I like this entry here very much. Admission for a consideration of a person to any premises. Admission of a consideration for a person to any premises. I'm sure if physical classes would have been there, some of us would have had an opportunity to stay in some of us would have had an opportunity to stay as a paying guest, PG. So we'd be paying to a third person, and we would be staying there. Sometimes it sets well with them, and then we would pay some money and they would take care of us. We'd be there as a paying guest now. My point here is, there was a age-old gentleman and a lady. Both of them are about 65 plus. Had three daughters. All three daughters was settled in various parts of country and outside India. And to them, one of my team member, who was a qualified cost accountant, she was staying with them as a PG. And that was a time where in which this law was being introduced. I often used to ask her, is the services provided by these two people, the age-old man and that lady, to you by accommodating you in their house, where you also pay a small fee of rupees 3,000 per month, for which they allow you to take care and do everything. Is it a supply? A question that comes up. Is that would be a supply? And our further question would get debated, whether it would be treated as a whether it would be treated as a business. Now I put for the same question before you. All those money collected by the person who provide the facility as paying guest, PG, is it business? Not a business. After learning this line, admission for a consideration of person to any premises. See, this is wide. Nowhere it is told to PG, but this entry is so wide it can bring in anything. So I admit you into a circus, then yes, that is also covered here. But again, as the entry is so wide, I can fit in anything here. In my view, PG is also getting covered over here. Balaji has raised a question. Sir, so to say, any individual who frequently doing the share trading shall be treated as a business income and not capital gain. Balaji, my understanding is yes. See, my understanding is a highly practical understanding. Maybe you have to refer the finer prints in the law for a better clarity. In my view, if an individual day in, day out buy shares and the volumes is also high and they make a very comfortable profit, it's very tough for them to pay at a normal rate, or earlier they used to claim that long-term benefit exemption and walk away. It would be treated as a income from profit and gains from business operation. That's my view associated with it, because we have one of the disputed entries. This facts, if the facts are different, again it would change. Department always want to tax it at as a profit and gains from business or profession, but again SSC want to always pay tax at capital gain. So wherever that doubts are coming in, all that area is always known for its litigation associated. Just an example to share you that how decisions are made under income tax, and it's set by the president. So you cannot borrow those principles here. I am not doing regularly. Maybe with this last example, I would conclude the discussions relating to business. I know a friend who did a one-time transaction. I'm sure all of us are aware of a car by name called as Aston Martin. Okay, Aston Martin, one of the flagship cars. Okay, here a celebrity also had this car. Very eminent singer's son had this car. I'm talking about 5-6 years before. I mean, little early also. 6 years before. Yes, the number would also be look very funny. PY 04007, not 7, the car number. Okay, YPY, very simple, tax will be less. So of course the car will be roaming on the streets of Chennai. That's all different, but our core discussion is something different. The car somewhere costed the respective gentleman about 4-5 crores, it seems. In fact, more than that, I've been told. Not 4-5 crores, sorry. The second sale value was for 5 crores. The original sale value for somewhere around 7-8 crores, some number. Okay. Now, one of my known fellow has acted as a mere mediator between two people, only once in his lifetime. In between made about 60 lakh rupees, 60 lakh rupees. Is it business? Only once in his lifetime he did a transaction. I'm not sure if you interact with some of those people who have these luxury cars or have been aware of the pricing model of these luxury cars or so-called branded cars or XYZ. One of the biggest challenge for them is their drop in the sale prices. A car at the showroom level will be sold for 85 lakhs. Once it is got registered in another person's name, within 2 months, if you sell also, you will not get that 85 lakhs. You will get straight 20% drop in the prices. Straight drop, let me repeat. A straight dent will happen to the car value by 20%. I'm talking of a 85 lakh rupee car which is out from the showroom. Maybe 2 months later, where it would have just driven about 1,500 kilometers or even less than that, people are not interested in paying more than 40 lakhs. For 40 lakhs, you don't have takers at all for this. Because of two reasons. At that range, no one will be interested for a pre-owned car. I would not say a used car. Used car is different. It is a pre-owned car. That's all. Already before you, there is one fellow would be registered. And at that level, they are not interested. And in between, you will have more mediators who will again play a big game. So often these cars always will be sold in the known route system only. Okay, you refer, he and you will get connected. Now, in this model, if someone you had an opportunity to interact, somebody you want always waiting for a let's say Range Rover Evoque, uh, and you had an opportunity, an orange black exceptional Range Rover Evoque edition, limited edition. You are aware of it. That fellow says, I want 50 lakhs. This fellow says, no, 40, 45 lakhs. I'm interested to buy. And in between mediated and told, brother, 45 lakhs, I'll get you this car. And told that fellow, see, if you go to the showroom, he'll take time. He'll take another 3 months. You are been waited. Another 3 months later, car price will come down only. Today, he is interested in buying for 40 lakhs. Told him, if you want to buy a new car, 6 months, you have to wait. This car collection will not be available, X, Y, Z. So 45 lakhs. Mediated both of them. In between, taken away a 5 lakh rupee. No doubt. Only once, if a transaction is done, also it would be treated as business. So dangerous is this word called as irrespective of whether or not there is volume, frequency, continuity, or regularity of such transactions. Let me repeat the transaction that I referred. So that is the level at which government somehow made it clear. So all those services by a person who hold an office and for which he is being paid some money honorarium, yes, it would be treated as a supply. All those services by a race club as a uh, total, I said. That is the person who have the power to collect money and do all those betting related activity. Yes. Any activity or transaction undertaken by government as a public authority, yes, it would be treated as a business. So intention is why? Because one fundamental problem is here: how government can do business. Oh, but as a public authority, government can always do a business. But for that, always the route that is opted by the government is either they will form a society, either they will form a trust, either they will form a body corporate, either today they are forming a company. Many state governments want and central government, and sometimes some of those corporations are interested in opening straight away a company because that is little easier and little transparent, and all the others are there as compared to society, trust. All these were there, but society trust now today is not much of interest because of the transparency issues that are associated. Now, when it is coming back here, this sums up the whole definition of the term business. But in my humble view, the first 3 points takes its major share. A, B, C. If we are clear about two subsections, 17A, B, C, I think we are done with a term called as business. Consideration as part of consideration is concerned, the whole idea of the term consideration for us here is consideration means it is in relation to supply of goods or services or both. Any payment made or agreed to be made. Let me any payment made or to be made. Again, most important one. Whether in money or otherwise. That's all. Money payable, paid. Both are consideration. Can consideration be only in money? No, consideration can be in other than money form also. Again, consideration can be past, present, or future. And it can be paid whether by the recipient or by any other person. Then that amount is called as consideration. So, as simple as that, with due respects for some of us who are virtually listening, you are not the recipient of service. No, sir, I am only listening this session. You are the representative of recipient of service. Because our father or our mother has made the payment to the respective institution for enabling us to get a particular service. So, to that institution, the recipient of the service is the person who pay consideration. But the beneficiary of the service, or in other words, the recipient's representative is going to be you and me. So coming back here, in those circumstances, there is a possibility that the recipient will not be the person who is making payment. Somebody else will be making payment. So coming back here, consideration can be paid by the recipient. Consideration can be paid by any other person. It can be in money. It can be other than money also. Again, consideration can be past, present, future. Sir, how you are saying it can be past, present, future? In respect of, in response to, or for the inducement of. Okay, beautiful words. Words that went up to the apex court, and we had a nice decisions on all this. So your consideration can be past, present, or future. Now, in case somebody comes up with other consideration, such as promise, such as abstain from doing something, a promise of abstain from doing something, or all those otherwise consideration, or coming up with something in kind, they give us a mobile phone, laptop, a gold item, something, then the monetary value of those acts or forbiddance of those acts will be treated as consideration. The monetary value associated. Two important takeaway from 231. At no stretch of imagination, consideration will include any subsidy given by the central government or state government. At no stretch of imagination, any subsidy given by central government, state government will be treated as consideration, followed by any deposits which are all going to be refundable deposit. Let me repeat, all those refundable deposit shall not be considered as a consideration. Sir, that refundable deposit I'm going to adjust on one day because the other party has not paid me. Good. On the day in which such adjustment happen, on that day it will be treated as consideration. So, our final takeaway are in 231, consideration can be present, consideration can be past, consideration can be future. Consideration includes money paid and payable. Consideration can be fully in money, partly kind, partly in money, fully in kind, or even promises of doing something or abstain from doing something are treated as consideration. In all those other than money consideration, you need to arrive a monetary value of those consideration and determine the liabilities. That when we go to valuation, we will discuss. Again, subsidy and deposits, refundable deposits. I'm cautioning, it's not plain deposit, vanilla deposit, a refundable deposit. Subsidy and refundable deposits are not consideration because subsidy by government is an incentive initiative, so it is not considered. Deposits are refundable in nature, so it is not considered. But that deposit, I'm going to write it off. That deposit, I'm going to forfeit it because he has not complied with certain conditions. At that moment, no doubt, it will be turned out to be a consideration. So that sums up our complete discussion on all those definitions. Quickly take us to the administrative setup under GST. As part of this administrative setup, who are all are going to be the higher ups here? This structure, what you see, is from a central government perspective, CT, central tax. CT stands for central tax. State government perspective, the picture is a little different. The picture would stop at commissioner of state tax. But central government has a different hierarchy. In central government, we'll start with assistant commissioner, one of the important cadre above inspector, superintendent. Third cadre is assistant commissioner. Next to assistant commissioner, we have somebody called as deputy commissioner. Assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, in terms of power is same, but in terms of their experience in services inside the department would be different. That's all. Assistant commissioner who has put in more than 5 years of service. If it is services after IRS, first 5 years of services, assistant commissioner. After 5 years, did some achievements. Yes, maybe on the 7th year, they will confer him. He would be treated as deputy commissioner. After deputy commissioner, after assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, the next hierarchy at which they will go is joint commissioner. After 20 years of service, joint commissioner. And about 25 years of service, additional commissioner. Sometimes additional commissioners are people who are all given with certain powers, flat powers. They will not form part of the jurisdiction. They'll be heading an audit wing. They'll be heading an investigation wing. They'll be heading an enforcement wing. They'll be heading an administrative, litigation wing. So separate wings are there inside the department. They'll head generally additional commissioner, followed by commissioner, who is heading one particular jurisdiction. And in commissioner itself, we have somebody called as principal commissioner. And again, above that, it is called as chief commissioner and principal chief commissioner. 30 years of experience, 35 years of experience, 35 years experience above. Somebody who has put in 35 years of experience, you would be reaching the highest position in India. Only 32 people in India can reach that position every year, called as principal chief commissioner. You will go sit head GST, commissioner of GST. Highest positions. And these are all something like from a manager, how they go to a CEO, same logic. Just be aware of setup. Why? Because tomorrow when we get into rules, we will say assistant commissioner have this power, deputy commissioner have this power, additional commissioner have this power. Commissioner alone can issue an arrest warrant. We will learn. At that time, we should know who is commissioner, who is additional commissioner, who will head what. Whole of Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry comes under control of principal chief commissioner. Below principal chief commissioner, the whole of Tamil Nadu is divided into 8 commissionerates, so headed by a commissioner. Among that, one commissionerate alone has a principal commissioner. Below that, every commissionerate has minimum of 30 plus divisions, which is headed by either a deputy commissioner or an assistant commissioner. For every commissionerate, there is a special wing for audit, for investigation, for enforcement, which is handled by additional commissioner. And every division is further drilled down into ranges. Every division will have about 5 ranges, which is handled by superintendent. Okay. Superintendent, I never brought it for because the law does not envisage about it. So plus the old officers under the erstwhile law of central excise now becomes the new officers as CGST law. They come with a new avatar. That's all. Beyond that, nothing great associated. All those appointment of officers under section 3 will be as per the board's CBIC, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. On those lines, the officers will get. That's all. Beyond that, we will not understand. That's sufficient. That itself is not required. Little from an exam perspective, not required. What are the powers of the officer? See, always a commissioner can delegate any of his powers to another person. Always a higher authority can absorb the power of a lower authority, which means a higher authority, additional commissioner can always have a right to do what an assistant commissioner has. But vice versa, not possible. Assistant commissioner cannot do what an additional commissioner can do. That's understandable. A manager cannot do the role of a vice president, but vice president can do whatever things can be done by a manager. Verbatim, same logic, which you have it in a printed form because the law should give that power. Again, appellate authority, preferably appellate commissioner, commissioner appeals, all those appellate authority shall not delegate his powers. I think I still remember one MCQ that appeared in the exam. Which commissioner cannot delegate the powers? They given a few options. One among them was commissioner appeals. It should strike to us, appellate authority means all those authority to whom we go and further dispute the facts. So appellate authority cannot delegate the powers, but for it nothing great. So appeals commissioner cannot delegate the power, but a jurisdiction regular commissioners, they can very comfortably delegate, and every higher authority can always act on the powers of lower authority. From a GST perspective, this section 6 is important. An officer who is appointed under SGST or UTGST are to be treated as a proper officer under CGST. Similarly, a proper officer means GST officer. You have a definition. Proper officer means all those officers who come under GST are called as, sir, we can call it as GST officer. No, correct, we can call, but law uses a specific technical term called as proper officer. If a proper officer, PO stands for proper officer issues an order under CGST, he should also issue an order under UTGST and SGST, wherever it is applicable, and intimate the jurisdictional SGST. See, tomorrow a CGST officer is reviewing a facts. CGST officer identified there is a short payment of CGST of 50,000. Sir, can he issue only an order for recovery of CGST alone, or he should issue an order for recovery of CGST and SGST? He should issue an order for recovery of CGST and SGST. Similarly, if a proper officer under SGST law or UTGST law, when he issues an order to collect SGST or UTGST, he shall also collect CGST and intimate the jurisdiction of central. By this way, you will know assessee need not go to both officers. Assessee will go to one officer only, but that officer will collect both tax. That's the intention. Section 6 is more important from GST administrative purposes. Whether two officers assessee need to go. No, not required. Assessee, if they go to one office, that would be comfortable for them and that would be sufficient. And that sums up our complete discussion relating to your decisions on scope of supply. So at this juncture, before we moving forward officially to your meaning and scope of supply, which is one of the important discussion for the day, I want to take up the first two limbs of the terms, 7.1a and 7.1b. We'll take a very short break for 5 minutes and then rejoin by 8 o'clock and then continue our discussion. Meaning and scope of supply. When we get into this broader term called as meaning and scope of supply, a very important word, section 7, will be into our discussion. As far as section 7 is concerned, section 7 in its scope of supply has all this. Or let me repeat it in this way. Section 7 will have 5 different topics to discuss. Supply in general. In case of import of service, how it would be treated. Certain activities done even without consideration is treated as supply. Certain activities are neither treated as supply of goods nor treated as supply of service. In short, called as no supply. Once there is no supply, there is no GST. First of all, to levy GST, it should be either a goods or service. Schedule 3 says all these transactions are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. So everything goes out of the kitty. And there are transactions which are treated by the government either as supply of goods or supply of services. So Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3 are the discussions where one will say without consideration, every activity which is listed in Schedule 3 are not taxable. And the third element, Schedule 2 transactions. These transactions we will park for a minute to our subsequent session when we take it up sometime during all those, sometime next session we will take it up. Today's discussion, we will largely concentrate on supply in general and import of service. Maybe our time limit will be within this boundary. So when someone wants to understand the core term supply in general, he has to understand only if this general term supply is satisfied, a person is leviable to GST. In case of import of services, if they satisfy this definition only, they are leviable to GST. Certain transactions, though it is not covered by the general entry, because those activities are done without consideration, we have just identified 4 activities. Let me repeat, 4 means 4 activity. That 4 activity alone done even without consideration would be treated as supply. Let me repeat, have a very clear understanding. So that 4 transactions alone, you will not bother about receipt of money. You will close your eyes and say supply because government has treated it as supply. So generally we have a term supply, and something is not covered by general, but still it will be treated as supply because it is covered by Schedule 1. Something which is not in general, generally it is not supply, and something is not covered by Schedule 1, it cannot be brought into supply definition. Supply is a taxable event. If there is a supply only, there is a levy of tax is possible. If there is no supply, there is no levy of tax. So supply is the trigger term, taxable event. In excise law, manufacture is the taxable event. If you manufacture only, excise duty will come. In service tax law, service is the taxable event. In the income tax law, income is the taxable event. If you have income only, what can come? Income tax can come. Similarly, if you have supply only, GST can be levied. So in the same way, supply in general would be the first part of our discussion, then on import of service, then Schedule 1 activities, Schedule 3 activities, then a generic note on Schedule 2 activities. That is how our flow of transactions will also go, or that is what we are going to learn from section 7, scope of supply. Now, supply in general. Generally, let me repeat, generally. Supply includes. It's an inclusive definition. It starts something like this. It's an inclusive definition. Supply includes all forms of supply. All forms of supply of goods or services. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services, such as sale, barter, exchange, lease, license, rental, disposal, transfer. Supply includes, it's an inclusive definition, which means this is not an exhaustive definition, anything can be added. So supply includes all forms of supply, where that all forms of supply, such as, what are all that forms it can be? It can be a sale transaction. It can be a transfer. It can be a barter. It can be an exchange. It can be a license, rental lease, made or agreed to be made. It is already done or about to be done by a person, which we are all aware. We have read a definition called as person. By a person. For a consideration. By a person for a consideration. In the course or furtherance of business. Connect all three definitions. Connect the definition of goods. Connect the definition of service. And then check your 7.1. 7.1a is not an isolated discussion. You are referring here 5 definitions. 252, 2102, 284, 217, 231. So do I need to remember all 5? Yes. Do I need to remember 7.1a? Yes. Double S. Coming back here, all forms of supply made or agreed to be made, of course, including all this, sale, barter, exchange, lease, license, by a person for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. The 5 elements are present. A form of supply is there, made or agreed to be made by a person for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. If all 5 ingredients are present, no doubt that activity would be treated as supply. Being a chartered accountant myself is engaged in a supply of services. It's a form of supply, no doubt. And I have provided earlier service, or I agreed to a client that yes, I will provide you next week some service, for which today I take up a consideration. And I am an individual who represents a partnership firm. Through a partnership firm, I provide my service. So my partnership firm is a person, no doubt. There is a form of supply. There is an agreement which is agreed that services will be provided sometime next week, or services already provided by a person, partnership firm. For a consideration, I do this activity in the course of furtherance of business. No doubt that activity is a supply. An institution accepts you and says, we will provide you a very good or a reasonable learning experience on the topic, followed by a form of supply of service, agreed that we will provide you in the next 3 months, next 4 months, agreed to be made by a person. The institution may be an LLP, or it might be an individual, or it might be a society, or it might be a company. Consideration is involved, furtherance of businesses. If you are going to get all 5 ticks, then only it can be treated as a supply. Otherwise, it cannot be treated as a supply. If it is not a supply, then levy is not there. Now come back to the example that we already discussed. Okay. Not yesterday morning. Today morning also mother gave you coffee. Sir, no coffee, sir, tea, sir. Okay, tea. Okay, boost. Okay, Horlicks. Something she gave you. Sir, எதுவுமே கொடுக்கல sir. வெந்நீர் கொடுத்தாங்க. Coming back here. Mother gave you coffee. For some of us, we are all blessed. Spouse gives coffee. Okay. So, mother gave you coffee. or your spouse gives you coffee, I don't bother about it. But my intention, core discussion here is supply, not a supply. Yes, supply, not a supply. So now you are in a decision making situation. You are going to decide it is supply, not a supply. Good, good. A lot of you are all answering. Anya, Tenmuri, Vidya, Vaishnavi, Nandini, Kirti, Aditya. Good, good. Deepak, Pradeep, Shweta, Preeti. Good. Happy for all of you. Ishwar, Ganapati. All of you are all right. It's not a supply. You have concluded very comfortably. Why? Sir, there is no consideration. There is no business. But rest all were present. There was a service. The services was already done by a person. But there is no intention to engage in a business. There is no consideration. Okay. Now let's elevate this example. We have discussed few examples. I want to retain those examples. I think I already shared. This time, a old age gentleman and a old age lady, both of them accepted a paying guest. Supply, not a supply, for 3,000 rupees per month. Old age gentleman, uh, old age gentleman and a lady member has accepted. Yes, yes. Supply, not a supply. Accepted a paying guest for a consideration. Supply, not a supply. See, my question is not will they be liable to pay tax or not. My question is very fundamental. Supply or not, you decide first. Then we will go decide whether intra or inter. Then we will go to levy section. Then we will go to registration section. Then we will understand threshold. Preeti, check your understanding. 4,000 rupees per month is collected from that person. The lady member, the old age gentleman, both of them were accepting a person as a paying guest. Is it a supply, not a supply? Our answers would be supply, because there is a supply of service, which is a form of supply. It is made or agreed to be made by a person for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. That is moving forward. This time, rarely you will come across, I don't know, but rarely you will come across mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are in the same page on a discussion. At least my experiences is something like that, because both persons maturity level would be little different because of that reason, and both persons perception would be different, and both person the way in which they put will be in the same point but in different pages. So that is my experience. Okay, I can only share out of my experiences, but I have come across exceptional mother-in-law and an exceptional daughter-in-law. So mother-in-law looks, daughter-in-law does to that extent. Okay, so some of this look little cinematic, but again I want to stay that way on. For various reasons, and because of the old age, the mother-in-law passed away. The mother-in-law's 100 sovereigns jewelry, 100 sovereigns solid jewelry, is given to daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law has a great liking for mother-in-law, no doubt, but daughter-in-law somehow felt that this is all my mother-in-law's jewel, and my spouse insists that I should wear my mother-in-law's jewel. That, however, the size, the type, because of the years it went, there is a possibility that would get break. The weight is little high. So what daughter-in-law did is nothing. Went to a goldsmith, gave all these jewel and asked him to make new jewelry, or went to a jewel shop, gave all those old jewel and picked up 100 new sovereigns. Okay, that's all. It's a clear exchange. That's all. Question before us. Supply. Look from the not jewelry shop perspective. I don't want your answer from jewelry shop perspective. From the daughter-in-law's perspective. From the daughter-in-law perspective, it is a supply, not a supply. It's a supply, not a supply. From the daughter-in-law perspective, Shweta, check your answer. You have to answer it only from daughter-in-law's perspective. I don't want an answer from jewelry shop perspective. From a daughter-in-law perspective. No doubt. All of us are on the same page. Kirti, check your answer. Ensure whether 5 ingredients are present. That is what is more important. Okay. We will once again go for a test. There is a scope of supply. Yes. Sorry. There is a form of supply. Yes. Because there is an exchange involved here. Followed by it is made or agreed to be made. Yes. For a consideration. Yes. By a person. Yes. By a person for a consideration. Then in the course or furtherance of business, answer is no. In fact, 1 month, I would do it in this way. But for the answers relating to in the course or furtherance of business, all the other answers were positive. Because of that reason, it walked away. Done? Yes. I'll give you another example. This time, it is a practice that is being followed in our office as a chartered accountancy firm. As part of giving back something to the society, it is a practice which has been followed by, as a tradition, it is followed by the partnership firm, that if it is a real charitable organization, we will not charge them for some of the small work. We have a definition what is small work. That's very clear. It's not from the respective organization perspective, our perspective. And even otherwise, if it is a charitable work, a real charitable institution work, where it is going to benefit lot of organization, our business model is cost plus 10%. Okay. We will arrive a core cost. What is the working time? Partner, how much need to spend? The intern, how much need to spend? What would be the other cost? Travel, this, that, and all. We will arrive at some number, and we will ensure we charge a smallest fee as far as possible. Okay. Or to some extent, sometimes certain works we don't. It's a certification fee for a small work. We don't charge at all. We do it at free of cost now, or without no consideration. Now, all that I want to drive home a point here is it is a charitable organization. We as a chartered accountancy firm is engaged in a particular audit verification of a particular assets located in that fixed asset located in that charitable institution. We did a meticulous activity and ensured we come up with the numbering of those assets in a particular way, and the organization people also helped us in numbering it throughout correctly, and we did this activity, for which we said, no, we would not charge this. In any case, this is going to benefit the public at large, so we would not charge it. Wherever we are not charging, we are very clear. We are taking a declaration from the trustee that we have not charged anything, because tomorrow we have certain other challenges on this ground. Now, the question before us is, a chartered accountancy firm which is engaged in certain services. Now, these firm which is engaged in certain services to a charitable organization did the activity without collecting money. Supply, not a supply. Yeah, supply, not a supply. Like this fixed asset verification we have did for many clients. Like this, another institution also we did, but we said no, we will charge you because we felt you're little commercial. Your numbers are commercial. For as simple as that, for a first standard, somebody collects 7,500 rupees fees and run the whole first standard. is different from somebody who collects 45,000 rupees fees and run the whole first time. There is a difference, understand. Maybe final intention is charitable, but end of the day, when you are collecting 7,500, I want to support you. Any case, supply, not a supply. Now I am here only from the CA firm's perspective. For that CA firm, is it taxable or not? Is it a supply or not? Do they need to pay GST or not? So supply means they are liable to pay GST. So that is how it goes. Supply, good, good. Now we will test this. Is there is a form of supply? The answer is yes. Is there is a service provided, made or agreed to be made? The answer is yes. Is there is a person providing the service? Yes, there is a partnership firm providing these services. Is it in the course or furtherance of business? The answer is yes, it is in the course or furtherance of business. Have you received consideration for the said activity? The answer was no. Because of that reason, it is supply, not a supply. The CA firm who did a work for a charitable institution and has not collected money is not a supply. Let me repeat, not a supply. So once it is not a supply, it is not leviable to GST. I know individuals, I know chartered accountants who have signed some of the best and best of charitable organization without collecting 1 rupee. In fact, at least we collect some money. I know chartered accountants who spend 10, 12 lakhs in an audit and say, I would not collect any money. They will incur a cost of 10, 12 lakhs for doing that audit. Because they would say, I know a chartered accountant who said, he said, in fact, those words are my inspiration for real charitable organization. Ganesh, today what I am is all because of that God. And how I can charge that God. I was the 4th chartered accountant in Tirupati. And today I am reasonably known. Today I am aware of certain facts. Today I could able to know everything is all because of that gentleman. And he never charged for a long time. One of the very famous trust, main trust, called as Tirupati Devasthanam Trust. Not even 1 rupee he called. He asked me one fundamental. I asked him, why, sir? Ganesh, how I can charge God? Do you think I'm so superior? That's something very amazing. And he incurs a lot of cost in doing it. There were 2, 3 paid CAs who will take care of that work, X, Y, Z. Now, in any case, that's all different. That's individual perception. Perception to perception, it differs. I know some of my friends who are all also of the same mindset on doing when they do a Christian-based organization, when they do organization which involves, it's there. There is a thought, there are organizations, people are doing it many times quietly without even saying that I did. In fact, that is what is the history that we have always come across. But my crux discussion here is, be that as it may, all this discussion, when there is 5 conditions satisfied, when you get a 5 tick, then only it is a supply. If it is 5 ticks lakhs, then it is not a supply. Maybe with this last example, I will close. A lot of you are all aware of these examples. Final exams are over, result came, you are also through. Abba. After this in life, I will not read at all. You will think, having taken up or chosen a professional course, daily you have to read it. Okay. Now, in any case, that's different. That's okay. For exam, you no need to read. You are going to read it for being equipped by yourself in your industry. That learning is different. Whenever there is for exam pressure, if you don't read, that's always there. Pressure reading, non-pleasure reading is different. Hope you able to appreciate it. Pleasure, pressure. So come back here. My core discussion is exams over, results came, you are through, and now you are a qualified professional. Mother saw, why this fellow always having all these books. Lifted all the books. One fellow, waste paper mart fellow, crossed the street that time. Called that fellow, take all the books. At last, only 860 rupees was received. Now my question is, 860 rupees received by our mother by disposing all those goods, which is books. Supply, not a supply. Mother disposing all the goods, supply, not a supply. Aditya, check your answer. Supply, not a supply. Quick. I want all of you to participate. This is the only way you get connected. When we are physically present, then our interactions would be different. We will have a great learning experience. Now, I want to maintain that learning experiences everywhere. Yes. Good. Shweta, check your answer. Rest all of you right. It's not a supply. Why it is not a supply? It's very simple. You have every ingredient present, but for consideration, not in the course of furtherance of business. Done. Can we move forward? Yes. When all this 5 ingredient present only, it can be treated as supply. Otherwise, it cannot be treated as supply. I'll close this discussion on supply with this example. This time, one individual was driving his two-wheeler, violated the signal. Because he violated the signal, the respective traffic police constable stopped the individual and charged him a fine of rupees 500 rupees. Similarly, a person who has parked his car on a non-parking area the vehicle has been towed by the respective policeman. The policeman charged parking the vehicle in a no parking area, fine 1,500 rupees. Towing charges 500 rupees. In nutshell, it is 2,000 rupees he has to legally pay to the government. The owner of the car paid 2,000 rupees and came back with the. Now, question before us is the services provided by the city traffic police is a supply? All those services provided by city traffic police is a supply. Deepak is of a view, yes, it is a supply. Deepak is of a view, yes, it is a supply. So I just want all of you. Ramya says, yes, it is a supply. Check. Vaishnavi says, no, it is not a supply. So supply, not a supply. Yes, when 2 answers are there, I am happy always. Only one answer is there, you have to be bothered about it. When 2 answers comes, Yes, quick. There is an individual who pay a fine of rupees 500. There is an individual who pay a fine of rupees 2,000. 2,000 as a breakup, whereas there is a fine as per the Motor Vehicle Act is 1,500, and there is a charge which they collect is 500. Supply, not a supply. Ambika says it's a supply. Some of you who told supply, can you confirm to me why it is a supply? Shweta also said supply. Can you give some logics? What makes you to say it is a supply? Is the city traffic police who is standing there and doing or stopping people or regulating it? Is it a statutory function or it is done in the course of furtherance of business? A city traffic police is doing the activity, or the respective state government is doing the activity as a sovereign function, as a function which need to be done by a government, as a statutory function. We'll not bring in that great word, sovereign and all. Is he doing his statutory duty or it is a business activity to him? Now, first question. Okay, this is question. Just I'm raising question. You decide answers. That will give you a new thinking. The fine that you paid, F-I-N-E, not fee, F-I-N-E, fine that you paid, is it a consideration? Is there is a difference between fine versus fee? Fine versus fee. Is fine is a consideration or fee is a consideration? In fact, you can also get into another discussion, fine versus fee versus charges. Fine is a consideration or not? My core question is there. Okay, once you get this answer, you can move on to a next topic. Yes. Fine is a consideration or not a consideration? Quickly. Fine is a consideration or not a consideration? Fine is not a consideration. That's all. Our key takeaway, our fine is not a consideration. And one more point, the traffic constable is engaged as a statutory authority. He is not here to do business and all. So at no stretch of imagination, it can be treated as supply. To the contrary, it is going to be a government ground. That government ground is rented to a person. At that time, they are engaged in the business. A ground like what is it? This take up this Nehru Indoor Stadium or any stadium which is there generally belongs to the state government. That state government, of course, below the Ministry of Sports, it will come. The state government will allow people to use it. If that be the case, that is how it would happen. Associate. So coming back here, moving from supply in general, this sums up a complete discussion on supply in general. Balaji has raised a question. If someone done the service without consideration, yet his firm name appeared on the newspaper for the same service, will it be considered as a supply? Balaji, here appearing in the newspaper as a service, I don't understand. You do this, I will put your name in newspaper. Is it so discussed? Then my answer would be different. You do this, I'll put your name in newspaper. Is it yes? Your yes is for that? Good. Then, is it not a barter transaction? We had a word here, no? We had two words here, very crucial words, barter, exchange. You do the statutory audit of this organization, I will put your name in my show. I think it's a barter. It's a barter. You get a consideration, but not in money, but in otherwise. So there is a transaction exists. So it is a supply. See, whether there is an agreement, a written agreement or not, well, then you are taking me back to the very important basic word called as agreed. Okay, I should not color it in this color. Okay. In any case, agreed. Agreement means Balaji, you agree that you will do a work for me. I asked you, well, can you help me on this particular engagement? You said yes. Do we have an agreement? That's all. You have an agreement. Agreement has to be is offer plus acceptance equal to agreement. This is what we have been taught in Indian Contract Act. Never forget for your lifetime. As long as, but it has for a validity before the court of law, it has to be a written agreement. Okay. But no one can take away an agreement. You said, paint my building, I will give you a hoarding space. Okay. My home is near to the bridge. So, because my home is near to the bridge, you can have a nice hoarding space. So, you told, or the flat people told, see, hoarding space, rent and all, with that, we are not going to do anything. Ask him to paint the whole building. He also meticulously painted the whole building. And he put the hoarding space. Now, it's a barter transaction. There is a supply of service by one person to another, and there is a consideration. Yes, no doubt, it is a supply. Very good supply. Okay. You have a mobile phone. You gave your old mobile phone and paid some more money and purchased another new mobile phone. Exchange or barter? Or my question now, I am again initiating on few words that are there forming part of our supply, which is going to be, are there any difference between barter and exchange? I consciously never took because I'm sure all of you are all aware, but just because this doubt came, no, Balaji's doubt comes, This triggers. Now, barter versus exchange. What is the difference? What makes you to say this is barter, this is exchange? Transaction 1. Transaction 1. Old car. Old car is given for rupees 3 lakhs and new car is purchased for 10 lakhs and the person paid after adjustment of the 3 lakhs rupees 7 lakhs. Okay. Transaction 2. A building was painted by a advertisement company and in turn hoarding space was provided. Transaction 1, transaction 2. Two transactions I gave. Both are exchange. Both are barter. One exchange, one barter. One barter, one exchange. MCQ. MCQ will be like this only. Deepak through, Vaishnavi through, Ishwar through. Denmuri, your answer is right. But which is what? I have given some number, no? You can come up with that number, no? Ambika, Vaishnavi, Shruti. Good. A lot of you are all answering. Good. Okay. T2. Okay. Understood. Vaishnavi. True. Shweta, true. Now, Denmuri, good. Now, point here for our discussion is, whenever a product is given and additionally money is given, and that product is going to be a same product that you are going to buy, is called as exchange. Or at least exchange is defined in the dictionaries like this only. For a mobile phone, if you give a laptop and give additional money, then it is also called as exchange. But generally, for purchase of mobile phone, they'll take only mobile phone. For purchase of a laptop, they'll take only a laptop. Car. The product link will always be there when it comes to exchange, generally, as per the dictionary meaning. Exceptionally, it can be different. To close the market, I would do something. Generally, it's same product is the match. But barter is, against the goods, you will give a service, against the service, you will give a goods, service against service, goods against goods. Any combination, no money involved in it. Wherever money involved in it, exchange. Wherever no money involved in it is barter. The question raised by Balaji is a barter transaction. You do this activity, I'll put your name in newspaper or I'll advertise for you. Barter. Okay, done. So that sums up our discussion. Quite a good discussion we had on this topic. Quickly, we will move to the next part of our discussion. The last part, a very simple part, import of service. Not so much tough as compared to 7.1a also. When it comes to import of service, the law very comfortably told in case of import of service. And in fact, we have a definition for import of service in IGST Act. Import of service means the supplier of service should be located outside India. Supplier of service should be located outside India. The recipient of service is located in India and the place of supply is in India. See, first fundamentally, three conditions should be satisfied to call something as a import of service. Import of service means supplier should be located in India. Supplier should be located outside India. Recipient should be located in India. Place of supply should be in India. Then only that transaction would be treated as an import of service. That import of service is for a consideration by a person. Interesting point is this only. In the course or furtherance of business or non-business. That is, you consume a service for business perspective or not for business perspective, it would be treated as import of service. A Zoom meeting subscription. Supplier of service, Zoom USA, located outside India. Recipient of service, an institution in India which subscribe that Zoom facility. Place of supply, when you read it at a later point, we all will agree, or but by this time, by general principles also we'll agree, it is the place where the recipient is located. Place of supply is in India. About $199 is paid month after month. Okay. Now, this money, which is being paid to them, okay, to get that rights to do that activity of transactions. Now, once this is over for a consideration by a person, is this institution is running this or making payment in the course of furtherance of business? Yes, no doubt it is a import of service. All these import of service done for business is a supply. One of my student who got just few batches before, who got AAR 11, another student who got AAR 7. This fellow AAR 7 was selected in one of those big listed company, consciously withholding the name, else you'll guess who he is. Now, selected. Having selected, he was being paid a beautiful package for that term. Okay. A good package. However, the position is in some of the mid of northeastern state. He went there. No great work difficulties he had. Morning 9:30 to evening 7:30 office. Very comfortable. Every time, somehow based on this office, all that, he had a great fascination for this PUBG game. And he used to every time play, keep, I have reached this milestone, this and all, you can keep status. Every time I see the status, I will criticize it. You can do better things than us, you know how to do this. And one time I got angry and shouted at him and wrote a very detailed message was, he renewed it for 999 full year subscription. Okay. To cut the whole long story short, my discussion ends at description. What I told him, leave it. After that, that fellow did one more international course. That story is different. But point here for our discussion is a PUBG game, a renewal of a PUBG game. You make some $10, $5, $3 for a game. Furtherance of business, non-business, personal consideration. Some of you have the habit of playing games. Cherish that habit within you. Okay. Don't get addicted, but that habit is good. You can always be me, myself with that habit. You can always run around with that habit for many things. Why I want to highlight all these discussion is, I often been fascinated by one game called as GTA. One of my pet games, every time I touch a PS4, sometime I get a scolding from my spouse for Because the moment I get connected to PS4 and GTA, I will not move out of that room. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, continuous game going on, and you'll get a little addiction towards it. And I'm a person who will play absolutely against the rule of the game. So my crime rate increases, and then when my crime rate increases, the search would be high. Now, why I want to highlight here is a complete paid version of this game, downloaded by an individual for a pleasure playing purposes. It's not for a gaming purposes. It is not for achieving something. It's not a gaming parlor. Pleasure playing purposes. For his pleasure, he is playing. Then, will it still be treated as an import of service? A question comes. The answer would be yes. Import of service can be for business purpose, can be for other than business purpose. With this last question, maybe I'll conclude today's discussion. The question goes like this. Mr. B, an individual, renewed his Gmail account, which, as he crossed the free space, and paid rupees 2,100 as an annual subscription. Gmail services are outside India, recipient in India, no doubt place of supply is in India. Is the said activity is a supply or not a supply? The said activity by that individual is a supply or not a supply? All that I want is answer from you. Is that is going to be a supply activity or a not for supply? That's all. If you all could able to come up with some answers associated with it, no doubt, I am happy for it. So that sums up the discussion for the day relating to two broader topics which I intended to take. Nothing much about it. Both would be treated generally understanding the scope of supply and general supply means. So if somebody satisfy all 5 conditions, then yes, it would be treated as supply. Otherwise it would not be treated as supply. So come back here. I'm sharing some files which we had in the whiteboard discussion. Okay. Just kindly confirm, have you received the file? Okay. If you have received the file, good. A lot of you are asking what happened to the material. I think I've already shared you that some amendments